creating and broadcasting. So
I think, what is the difference? I think when you start broadcasting, it actually then creates the video that goes to YouTube.
right, it creates the video. It also allows the entire general public. I'm not sure. You know, it's funny. We have some pretty smart people here in the Reno Collective. Very unique group of people. A lot of programmers. Jonathan Denwood, who I was going to have on for a few minutes earlier today, is going to come in tomorrow and work. But these are really interesting people. There's some cutting-edge technology people here. The Google Hangout is actually, there's not a lot of instruction and tutorial in the Google Hangout. It's new and Google evolves. We're just talking about that. It actually has taken a lot of work and a lot of understanding to get to this level. Now, some people have it down, but there's a lot of just little moving pieces. And it's sort of strange. I find that the podcasting is pretty simple. It's not like engineering. It's not difficult calculations. But there's about 100 things you have to do in a certain order. None of those 100 things are difficult. They just take one step after the other in building blocks. So you get better. And I can tell you, you know, we're on 35 today for the Daily Show. And I had been creating podcasts probably for 6 months, but the Daily Show started 35 days ago. And the amount of improvement in that 35 days is huge compared to the first 9 months.
Oh, it has to be. And, you know, we always want to be evolving. We always want to be learning. We always want to be improving. But what you did, Bill, is, and actually we're going to be talking about that today because Nick Loper spoke about perfection is the enemy of good enough. So you just got to launch. You got to get going. You got to get a couple of bloody noses, fall down a little bit, and figure it out.
Yep. I always say that it's just as long as you don't get killed and destroy yourself.
Well, here's the thing:
there's
is that
a certain point you don't want to go. Go ahead.
Here's the thing: you can do this today, and it doesn't get broadcast, and there's no sound or whatever it is, and you can look down. You've still got your arms, you've still got your legs, everything's still intact. It's not a catastrophe.
And we've had those days. We've had those days. What's really nice, though, on the podcast is we had some. I made 16 or 15 reserve shows, and we've used all but 2 of those up to get set and to play.
Yeah.
But they took a long time. Those first shows probably took 8 to 10 hours apiece.
So people got to get in the game. You can't be an observer your whole life. Yes, you got to learn, but at some stage you've learned enough to start. You know, people, you can't be a lifelong learner and not get in the game. You've got to get in the game.
Okay, I'm going to try to put a link on here. I am going to put on a link, not try, so you can see my screen. So let me go back here. I'm going to bring up basically the website. By the way, the next area of improvement will be the website. It's a balancing act. So let me go back over here to the website. It's a weird angle.
So my understanding is, so Google Hangouts is Google products play nicely with other Google products. So if you're doing Hangouts, you want to use Google Chrome versus other browsers because it's just going to work a little bit better, is my understanding.
Correct. The other thing, too, is we have a small mastermind here. Really, it's a and I get information from them that helps us understand this better. So mastermind, that concept of mastermind. And he's passing down some information to help us, get better. He said the lighting was the way to start next. Now, where was I going? This is what you get when you're multitasking. I'm putting up these shows. What I'm doing is I'm just setting the shows up so you can see these shows for this week. So we started out. You don't have the dates. The 30th was Nick Loper.
Nick Loper, yeah.
Yeah. Nick Loper is going to be our first one we talk about.
That's the first one.
It's funny. I'm producing these. I listen to them. I actually enjoy them when I re-listen to my shows. I listen to them as a consumer, and I get things out of them that I didn't get out when I actually put them together. Explain that. Oh, wait.
Oh, it's because you're a new person every time you listen to someone. I mean, we've spoken about spaced repetition on the show before, and how important it is to read the same book over and over again, or listen to the same audio series all over again, because every single time you're actually a different person, and you have different cognitions every time you do something. So when you listen to your own show, there's also these things called I'm gonna call them learning detours. I don't know if anyone's Maybe I can draw this here and people can actually see it. Are they looking at your screen right
Yeah, actually,
now?
they're right there. We got the 9.3, which are
So imagine this is a piece of information. This could be an audio series or a video or something you watch, and here's your focus there. And then what happens is your mind gets taken away for a period of time. You know how you're listening to something and then you don't know what you've heard for the last 2 minutes or something like that?
Mhm.
You've actually gone on this detour, and then you come back and you focus again, and then you go on another detour. So although you've actually gone through 30 minutes of listening to something, you maybe only listened for 20 minutes, and 10 minutes your mind was somewhere else. So if you listen to it the next time, you go on a detour at a different spot.
Speaking of focusing, I'm actually focusing in on that right now so you can see it. And our new system looks like it's working. That's good. We can actually see it, Glenn.
So what
That's
you want
very
to, this
good.
is why space repetition is so important, because every time you go on these little detours, you're going to go on a detour at a different spot, and eventually you're going to have covered all of that material. So space repetition is really important.
Explain that space repetition again. I was multitasking here.
Space repetition is repeating the same information spaced out over time.
You know, that goes back, and I've actually put a lot of time and effort into learning how to learn and when the best time to learn is. We know that first thing when you get up, there's a period of time when you can really learn a lot, and when you go to bed for reviewing. We know that's a
That's
fact.
because you're in an alpha brainwave state for about 40 minutes after you wake up, and then just before you're going back to sleep again, you're in an alpha brainwave state.
Now, we're not talking about this yet, and we might want to, but we're talking about eating the frog, doing the most difficult thing first in the morning, getting it done, and how you didn't used to do that, and vice versa. If you start studying that 30 minutes, you're not doing that difficult thing first. And sometimes you get sidetracked because the study makes your mind think and broaden.
Well, it depends. If the most important thing is to study for an exam that's coming up, then that might be relevant for you.
That's pretty good point there. Yeah, that's a very good point. I'm going to push this back out. Our little system worked pretty well. It'd be really nice to have a sound engineer doing what I'm doing right now. So I'm multitasking with this new technology. If you can sort of see this, but I was able to zoom right onto your notes, which was good. But I have to leave this up. So let me go back into. We're going to go up on. Make sure that this is being shown. So here's timelines. We got the right. Okay, you're now seeing. This is nice. So you're now seeing what I'm seeing on my monitor on the top here. So we're all ready. We're going to go ahead and start the podcast, Glenn, for this week.
So what I was showing here with this is you can actually drag the screen smaller and then put it where you can actually see so just take the corner of it and make that a smaller window.
Well, let me show you what you're seeing up here, though.
And then you can kind of put it up to one of the sides so you can see both of them at the same time.
Oh, yeah, I know. You know who does that really? I have a bigger iMac in the system. That's very, yeah, I understand what you're saying. The Windows 7 actually has a really good feature to do that, where you split the screen. They came up that early. But see, that's suggesting this now. It'll be interesting to see what you see here. That's interesting, because it's over here, and we're seeing this here.
Yeah, I think you want to leave the Google Hangout full screen, and then you just have your website.
Let's see.
On a smaller scale.
Yeah, it does the same thing. It actually didn't make a difference on that. See that?
Okay.
See, but that's good though. It's still good. You can sort of see back here, and we sort of see what we're seeing on Google. That's where it'd be nice to have two monitors. I could bring in another monitor, and we could put one on one monitor and one on the other monitor. I mean, this is a learning experience. What you're seeing today is we've got the 930, which I'm a little disappointed with the 930. Very difficult to get it to work with the Google Hangout, but we had to do some research, and Jonathan actually came up with the information. So we probably might make a little tutorial on that for people who want to use 930. But
so what is 930? The camera?
That's that camera right there.
Okay.
And I can adjust it, I can move it, I can zoom it. Some people love it. It got pretty good reviews, and it looks it actually looks pretty good when you see us. But right now we're just talking about the screen. So I'm going to go back and forth here. I'm going to go from here back to the screen. It's taking a few minutes here. There we go. So you can see, because I zoomed it out I'm going to pull it back. And this is, you got to go here, and I'm going to pull it back a little further. It's all the way back. So we're cut off today. So I'm going to move the camera back a little bit.
Well, it was okay previously.
Yeah, right there. We're back. So that's what we're seeing. I'm still going to move it back a few inches. Now these Google Hangouts are for the diehards that really want to see behind the scenes what's going on. Because we don't edit them. It's just a bonus hooked in the bottom of the page.
So are you saying these people don't have a life on a Saturday morning? They've got nothing better to do than watch you and I set up a podcast?
Well, you know, most people go and watch these afterward. But they're not edited. They're just rough. They're lower resolution. But what I found a really good use out there, folks, I've taken this technology and I've actually taped or put this Google Hangout at a pretty high-end presentation, a luncheon, at the Atlantis Hotel in Reno, Nevada, with their system, and actually got a good feed. And then a lot of people watched that presentation. It wasn't amazing, but this is a little bit better clarity with this camera. And we're learning. See, it's actually focusing in on some of these things very well. It picks up something. I guess we've got a manual focus here. Let me go off here to show you one last thing. Here's a little control thing here. I'm going to take this off, and I can play with this where I put it all the way back here, so we're indefinite, which is really probably the best for the faces.
Yeah, an infinity focus.
Which is right there, but still not great. It was focusing in on, before it was focusing on something. Let it go here, autofocus again. So it'll focus on your hand, so you can see my hand. But let me take this off and just play. Look at what the focus might look at here. That's definitely not good. So it doesn't really have a broad range.
Mm-hmm.
To get the camera I really like is probably $2,000.
Yeah, it's not worth it at this stage, right?
Well, that'd be a point. And ideally, I think you set up these studios where you bring people in to create the podcast on-demand radio, and you get really good. But our content's still good. What you're about to hear in the podcast will be good, solid content. And we're getting very good numbers, and we thanks folks out there for the content. So let me turn this up just a dab. Glenn, one last sound test before we go live.
Sound test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sound test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's another thing. If the people say the same words, it's easier to do a sound test. And then get excited, yeah?
Get excited, yeah?
Yep, that's good. We didn't bust. So we look really, really, really good on the sound, and I just turned on the system. I could put it on here. So we're up right now, and this is going to be, I'm not going to announce the episode because I do that but it's episode 36. So the weekend wrap. So Glenn, welcome to the weekend wrap. We're here. We're back. You had a heck of a week. You went to Washington last week, and we're back on schedule now. It's Saturday morning. The Saturday morning, 9 August, so this will be tomorrow, 10 August, so it's fresh. And that's one thing I want to tell folks out here. There's a lot of people that do daily podcasts, and they're very short, or a couple of people do format similar to what we do or I do. But what I really shoot for is to try to keep the podcast very fresh, that I try to get them all up within 10 days, ideally 2 or 3 days. So I'll have a few as a reserve in case there's something happens that we can always flip up. But those reserve, I'll make sure those go up within 10 days. But generally, if I interview somebody and 2 days later, I want them up and live so we can really tie into what's happening in the world as well as what they are doing and how they're being affected. Because things are dynamic and they change. So that's a little commercial for the show. The other thing I've started, too, is sponsorship. First Realty is a sponsor. You notice there's a little commercial. We have some affiliate marking. But in a free market system in the long run, and unless you're independently wealthy, one of the missions is to make a profit in whatever you do. And when you make that profit, or whatever those monies are, you can reinvest them back into what you're doing, take care of your family, and then do the things that you want to do for yourself, as well as charity and other things. We're talking about that pre-show a little bit, because you just came back from Washington. And why don't you tell us about your trip and some of the things you learned?
Hey, morning, Bill, and morning to all the listeners. And yeah, this is our third weekend wrap. I'm kind of excited about this. This weekend I went to Washington, D.C. I went to actually help my mentor teach a new group of students. And one of the best ways to learn is to teach. And you always get a deeper understanding. Things will start making a lot more sense to you when you teach other people. And that also beautifully ties into the principle of if you help enough other people get what they want, then you'll automatically get what you want. So, Bill, you're totally right. Yeah, what you're doing here is you need to monetize whatever you're doing. And successful people will shamelessly promote themselves. And in my experience, unsuccessful people get offended by promotion, and that's something that's going on within them that they need to correct so that they can also become successful.
Yeah, so just so you guys know, if you tune in and watch the podcast, you will see, disregard what I just said, that'll be ahead in the podcast, but if you tune in and you listen to the YouTube review or streaming view of the Google Hangout, you'll see this is Glen's really company here, his evolution. Can you give us about 5 minutes, because I think it's really fascinating what you've done, because you and I both come out of the engineering side of the house. I did a civil engineer in the military as well as design, build, construction in California for 9 years prior to 9/11. And you've come out of you are in a very successful career and evolved, but you're doing something you want to do. You want to change in life. And I think that's really what makes who you are and why you are as good as you are. You've really gotten through a dynamic change in your life.
Yeah, but like the very quick story there, I mean,
the 5-minute story, yeah.
Well, we'll try to do it even quicker than that. But, you know, I went down that path where my parents and the people that influenced on my life taught me that I need to get good grades in high school so that I could go to college and get a degree and get a job and work for a company your whole life and get a pension at the end of that. Well, that was the old world. You know, the new world has changed so much. So I spent 25 years working on 3 different continents doing incredible construction projects around the world. Things like Dubai International Airport, the Accelerated Surface Water Program in Houston, Texas, highways and bridges all over the world. And I worked my way up to a vice president in a publicly traded construction company, and I eventually got to where, I'm providing service to the world through building infrastructure. People need roads, people need bridges, airports, but I didn't feel that was really feeding my soul, and I didn't feel that was a way for me to use my unique gifts and talents in service to the world. So I started this kind of change in direction where I wanted to, how could I take my corporate success and translate that into personal success? I must say it's one of the hardest things I've done is moving from corporate world to entrepreneur world. It's been tough. So and I think that's really a good thing because I now understand exactly what it's about so I can help other people go through that same transition. And it's not that simple. So some of the things I did was I got a master coach certification so that I can learn how to take all of this material and how do I translate and teach that to other people. So Secret Success Blueprint is a product that I've created. It's a digital product, which is basically videos and written material where we take people, it's exactly what it is. It's a success blueprint. Take people through the whole system on how do you create success in your life. And it's just a real exciting new chapter and adventure in my life. I still do some consulting to the corporate world while I'm setting up and building my business.
That's your transition. And one thing I'll say is Glen really had a tremendous career, or has a tremendous career in his transition, and makes a lot of money in what he does. I know the industry. In fact, in a combat zone, and I make pretty good money when I'm overseas doing the specialty work I do, but you have made a lot of money here in the States and other parts of the world. Not many people would step away from what you're doing. That baffles. I got mixed feelings. I mean, I stepped away from that model and started my own design build construction company. But that's a good model you went in, that corporate world, high end. There's been a lot of money. You know, I mean, you're in the road building business right now on the backside, and of course the rebuilding of America has pushed a lot of money into that industry.
Well, not as much as you would think, but yeah, you're right. And moving from that safe harbor of an incredibly good salary and incredible bonuses.
Top 1% easily of the United States. Easily.
Yeah, 1 or 2% for sure. But here's the thing. The ultimate currency in the world is happiness.
And your time. I think your time goes in there too.
Absolutely. It's about quality of life. So I looked at it, you know, right now I'm 46 years old, 47 years old, somewhere around there. Like,
I love when that happens. See your moment.
So, you know, there's another 20 years left of corporate work, and I just decided, do I want to be happy for those 20 years? And when I got to the stage where what I was doing wasn't fulfilling me and filling my soul up with joy, it's time for a change.
Yep.
And stepping away from that ball and chain of a good salary, it's tough. But the studies have shown that below $60,000 a year income, people get proportionately unhappier. But above $60,000, the happiness doesn't really change. Someone earning $60,000 and someone earning $600,000, the happiness index doesn't change very much, because the ultimate currency is happiness.
I understand that very well. Very well. And it really, that 60,000 varies where you live, what part of the country, what part of the world. But the concept of infinite wealth or more money doesn't make you happier. There's a balance, a quality of life, like you just mentioned. But that said, it's nice to make more money.
We like good things. We like traveling. We like eating good food. We like drinking good wine. We like experiencing all the pleasures that life offers us, and that does require money.
Well, this is a good transition, because this whole podcast series, this daily podcast, is all about people's life and transition and how they evolve. Some people are younger, some people are older, but everyone in this podcast, what they have in common is they evolve, they change, they move. It's about the timeline of their success. They fall back, they keep on going. So that's all we're all about. So let's start out with the first show this week, which was Monday, which is Nick Loper, Mr. Hustle. Interesting show.
Very interesting. I'm going to kick off here where he said that his advice is you need to look at life with an experimenter's mind. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to experience contrast. And what I mean by that is that we sometimes need to experience things that we don't want, things that we don't like, because that gives us clarity to define what we do want. And until we really, really, really know what we want, we never get it. So that experimenter's mind, let me try this. And then you go, hey, you know what? This is not what I want. This is not what I like. What do I want? And then you can shift to what you want. So the experimenter's mind is hugely important. The other thing that he said is perfection is the enemy of good enough. And that reminds me, I believe the quote is a General George Patton quote, where he said, a good plan violently executed today is better than the perfect plan executed next week.
Yeah, we've heard that before, and that's so true. And it's true in combat. You're going to get killed if you have to wait sometimes, because your opponent is coming at you. So you have to execute and make it work. You don't have the time. Sometimes we don't have time to do everything we want to do.
Exactly. So that goes back to that model that things need to be just good enough. You need to take action. You need to get going. So you're taking that experimenter's mindset. Something's good enough. You start going with it. Maybe you experience the fact that this is not what I want. This is not what I like. I need to change direction. But understand that that's part of the process. That's not a failure. People are like, oh, I just failed at this. No, you didn't. You experienced contrast, and you were able to define what you actually do want.
Right. Minimally viable plan. But sometimes those minimally viable plans execute, and they become very good. And that's what we're doing here. We're building this show through that process, experimentation. So that was very good. One thing he had, if you look at the notes, in the notes under the bluff, and look at life with the experimenter's mindset, he talks about a process. Nick talks about a process of how to make a decision. And it says, you got to look at what is the best thing that could happen, what's the worst thing that could happen, what's the most likely thing to happen. So you have to balance those three elements to decide what you want to do.
Exactly, and I think it was in show number 2, you asked me, like, people make these big decisions, how do they do that? And I think we spoke about people mortgaging their homes to start a business, and we said a very similar thing there. It's like, figure out what's the worst that could happen, and can you live with that emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and if it's a yes, go for it. If it's a no, you need to reconsider. So that's the same thing that Nick's saying here, is can you live with the worst outcome? And if you can't, guys, don't do it. It's not worth it.
Very good. So our next show was 31, which is Ryan McMaster's UAV, UAS. Basically, here is an engineer, a very smart young man. He's in his 30s, different timeline, had very good success while he was in school, has numerous masters, got some patents when he was young, And he lives off those patents, which has allowed him, and this goes on to the experimental concept, he is continuing to experiment and develop. And what he's looking at now are UAVs, but he also uses a lot of modeling. So he models UAVs. He's very sharp, very capable. So this fits right into that concept of doing what you love, doing something that's creative, and experimenting.
Absolutely, and he says there, I've failed, where does he? I've failed more often than I've succeeded. And that is ultimately so important. That's part of that experimenter mind. That's part of, it's just good enough. Let's take some action. We can experience some contrast here. It reminds me of, Thomas Edison said, how does it feel that you failed 10,000 times inventing the incandescent light bulb? And he said, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I found 10,000 ways that it wouldn't work. And it's so important, and I think one of your later guests actually speaks about this as well, where you need to analyze your past. And it's so important for people to do some self-awareness, self-analysis. And that's why in my product, Secret Success Blueprint, I've got a whole module that is purely about going back and analyzing the past to figure out the mistakes you made. And again, that mistake is not a mistake, it's a mistake. Like in the movie industry, cut, do a new take. So learning from the past so that you can apply it to the future. And look at all the successful people. Babe Ruth struck out more than anyone else. Michael Jordan has missed more free throws than anyone else, but yet they're the most successful. So you need to, I'm going to put this in quotes, you need to fail your way to success. And I think in show number 2, we spoke about failing small, experimenting and testing and finding ways where very small amounts of financial capital to test a concept to see if it's going to work or not. Fail small, learn from it, adjust. So the formula there is take action, get feedback, make adjustments, take action again.
Very good, very good. So going on, Alex Harris, episode 032, he can solve your problem. Now Alex did that transition too. He went from the .com corporate world into owning his own small business, but he actually is using other relationships to build a network of people to create amazing websites. And if you look on his site, and I don't have it here, he's got some high-end clients. I mean, you recognize these clients as very, very high-end. His clients are $1 million plus clients. But then he's got some smaller businesses too, I'm sure. But Alex had, again, this fits sort of into the theme this week of experimenting, evolving, and going forward.
Absolutely, and he starts off there with talking about you want to find out what is your unique skill or value proposition. And for everyone listening out there, is we all have gifts that we can give to the world. And it's I'm going to say it's our duty to discover, unwrap, and develop those gifts so that we can give them to the world. And Bill, that's what you're doing right now. You are unwrapping and developing your gift of doing podcasts, taking success information and putting it out to people so that people can learn from previously successful people. Success leaves clues, so that's what you're doing. The other thing that Alex spoke about was, he said there's not a question of will there be tough times, it's more a question of when they will arrive. And it's so important for us to keep on going. Persistence is so important. So many people give up right on the brink of massive success. And developing persistence, you are going to be tested. Things are going to go wrong. You're going to experience contrast. You're going to have to make adjustments. And again, in Secret Success Blueprint, I've got a whole module all about persistence and how you develop persistence and what is your mindset to be able to carry on when you've apparently failed. And again, I put failed in inverted commas there because it's not really failing. It's just getting feedback.
Right. Anyway, that's sort of, it was an interesting show. And one thing he puts here, he says, when your clients arrive on your website, you want them to know that you are the person who can solve their problem. So that is interesting. That came in. That was his bottom line up front when we looked at the series.
That's definitely, everyone out there, you've achieved something in your life. You've overcome something. that again, we call that a problem. It's not a problem, it's a situation or a circumstance or something like that. But you have achieved something that others also want to be able to achieve in their life.
Right.
And those are your gifts and talents that you can take to the world. So what problems can you solve for other people?
Right. He says that you want to solve your clients' needs. It all comes back to fulfilling an issue for your clients or people specializing. That story about building a pencil. There's no one person who can build a pencil. You can't go mine, you can't go process, you can't transport, you can't cut the wood. So it takes a team of people, and everyone's filling everybody's need to create that pencil that we write with.
Absolutely.
So it takes a lot of people. There's a lot of needs to be filled out there in all different areas. So going on, this was a fun one. Episode 33. Now we're getting to the fun side, the back side of the week. I mean, it's all fun, and I enjoy interviewing everyone. But this is an old friend, Carmen Sabatino. I was the vice mayor. Prior to 9/11, I was the vice mayor, and he was the mayor. And we're in Modesto, California. The market wasn't bad. First quarter of 98, the California housing industry improved, and most of the cities were doing pretty well financially. The markets were doing well. Our funds were starting to get super funded. That means that we didn't have to put money into our retirement accounts, and things are going well. Our finances are going up. But one takeaway I have here is Carmen and I made hard decisions to build a reserve and to focus on the basics of the city. Now, we had to battle a lot of special interests, and it's politics in the United States. It's unique. I'm sure it's that way everywhere in the world in different ways. At least we don't shoot each other here in the United States like they do in other parts of the world, which I've seen. That's one of my secondary life skills, is setting up governments in foreign countries. Interesting dynamic. We think of the State Department doing that, but in combat, civil military operations goes in first and sets up that first government, works civil military operations, and works the State Department to transition, and then transitions over to that local country. That's one of my skill sets that I love doing, by the way, but just always not in demand. And it's very stressful, too. It does wear on you. So anyway, I was in city government prior to 9/11 as a vice mayor, really we're working about 30, 40 hours a week and still running my businesses. Good to get back with Carmen. And Carmen is a very successful person throughout his life. He was a teacher for 30 years. He has an amazing restaurant. It's the best restaurant in town. Literally, he's built this one step at a time. And he's worked hard, and he's sacrificed a lot for that restaurant. But when you talk to him, you know he's happy. He's very satisfied that, yeah, he was the mayor. He did those things he wanted to do, and he tried a lot of times. He loves his restaurant, and he loves the community where he lives. So he's had a good life, and it's continuing on. And he's from Chicago, which is unique.
Interesting. And he has a common theme. It looks like about, and I'm just going to guess off the top of my head, 30 or 40% of your guests say the same thing. His bluff here is you just have to keep trying. If you lay down, you die.
And he believes that. He definitely believes that. I know him.
Absolutely.
He's
We just
tougher than
spoke about
nails.
it with a previous guest, and it's about persistence. It's about keeping on, keeping on. And he also spoke about learning from other people's mistakes. So there are really two ways that you can learn how to be successful in life. Number one is from your own experience, and number two is by observing others. And that's what Carmen is talking about here, is observing what other people do. You can learn a lot from the mistakes people make because you don't want to repeat those. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people like me, where I had the mindset of like, hey, you know what, I'm a superstar. I won't make the same mistakes those people did, so I'm going to do what they did wrong and it's going to work. I don't want to go into my whole real estate story, but I made a lot of mistakes that I was told by other people, don't do that, but I decided to do it anyway. And that's why having mentors is so important, because you can observe them and learn from their experiences, and then not making the mistakes that they know are going to lead you down the wrong path.
Now, I know you've had mentors as you've transitioned, and you've had good mentors and bad mentors. So that's going to be another episode. We'll talk maybe next week, maybe 5-10 minutes to start. How do you pick a mentor? Because it's just like anything else. You got to be selective, and that's really an important element to select. Maybe a test cycle. We'll talk about that next week.
Absolutely, and that goes back to the contrast we were talking about earlier. Sometimes you find a mentor you don't want so that you can define a mentor you do want.
Yeah, you got to find somebody you mesh with. Hey, one last thing about Carmen, and I'm going to shift into politics. One of my passions, and this isn't passion, it's politics. I mean, from setting up governments to working on our own government, city government, national government, how things are made. I found two things. One, we in the United States are very close to our government. Believe it or not, but there's a very small group of people in our government. So it doesn't take much to get very close, whether it's your congressman, senator, you're very close. Your local council member, your supervisor, your mayor, that's close government. And the best government is closest to the people. But one thing I want to say, and this is really important, for me at least, and I've learned this. When I got out of the military, and I was raised in a Republican household in Orange County, and entrepreneurs, and really they were focused on working, not so much politics. But they were, 100% Republican. And I still am 100% Republican, but when I was on council, Carmen is from Chicago and a Democrat. I'm from Orange County and a Republican, and we ended up in Modesto. We were mayor and vice mayor. We believed in the same things for running that city. We believed in fiscal responsibility, local parks and streets, and public safety. That's our core beliefs, and we knew that between us, and we would focus at working on those basics to make a good city so the people could do what they want to do. But here's the bottom line. He's a Democrat, I'm a Republican. We believed in the same thing. So what happened over a period of years, especially with this experience, I don't know, I believe we need to pull together more and work together as a team, even at the national level. And you see that divide at the national level between the Democrats and Republicans. So this is a sidetrack, but it's important to me, and I think it's important to America, that we work together for common causes to make things better for all of us and have less divisive government. So when you see people attacking each other in politics, run the other way. Because if we don't work together, we won't do as well.
Oh, I'm definitely not going to get involved in a political conversation.
That's me. I had to say that.
What you said there, the core values, is so important. And entrepreneurs out there, figure out what are your personal core values and make sure whatever you go into align with those core values. What I mean by that is let's just say, for example, that your core value is freedom, and then you go buy a Subway franchise where you are handcuffed to this business 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That business is not aligned with your core value. It's going to fail.
You know what? I understand what you're saying. I got a little side story. We talked about Subway. After 9/11, I was back on active in the Air National Guard, and I went in the Army, as a lot of folks know. But one of my young airmen, very sharp, she was really sharp. She just started a Subway franchise, bought two of them. Actually bought another. Her plan was to buy a bunch, and she worked her tail off, and she was activated. Oh, my.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my. And I learned how much work she has to do. Those stores back then, after 9/11, were making $50,000 to $60,000 of profit. So the idea is to get enough of them. But they earn every dollar they get. And it is a system. It does work. But she was getting burnt out very fast. And I think her family was helping her out while she was on active duty. But you hit it right on the ball. See, one thing she told me, said, I lost a lot of freedom because of these stores. But that goes back to working hard now so you can do other things later, too.
Correct. And again,
or doing things you like.
Again, it's just find your core values and then find something that's aligned with those core values that you love to do, and then your chances of success are way better. And again, I'm not knocking franchises. For some people, if your core values are aligned with that business model, it's going to be fantastic for you.
Right. And as you know, we had a Better Homes and Gardens franchise, which I thought was a pretty good franchise, but we went back to being independent in real estate. And so we could have more freedom with our business and create systems that we thought were more effective. So even in your own business, freedom is important. So going on to Friday, something I'm going to try to do Friday is I'm going to try to interview a graduate from one of the academies. I've got a lot of connections into the academies. West Point, Naval Academy, Coast Guard, Merchant Marine, and Air Force. And I am up my third interview right now, and I'm going to try to do one every Friday. It's not always possible, but it is a goal. So Doug Lobdell, these academy grads, the ones who got in and out and stayed in the reserve, had very unique transitions in life. Doug has started out from a farm in upstate New York to going to West Point, to having a lot of responsibilities as a young second lieutenant, as an engineer in Europe, and then coming back, getting into Space Command for 12 years. Then the Army downsized, the big Army downsized, so he had to be flexible, had a great bonus, but that led him into all sorts of different things and experiences in life. 28 years of active reserve, from being and then later on being a contractor, working engineering in Afghanistan, which was real challenging, to coming back and being a city engineer, basically. So he's had an interesting life. He has a good life. He's enjoyed it. And he's with his family now in El Paso. So he's had a great timeline. Fun story to listen to. Long one. It went over.
The one that jumps out there where he says, get out and enjoy an incredible life. This is so important, this concept of enjoyment, this concept of having fun, this concept of feeling good, this concept of being happy. The law of attraction works in a certain way. Whatever signals that you are giving out from your brain, you attract back similar signals. So when you're miserable, angry, depressed, pissed off with the world, the law of attraction says you're going to attract more of that back to you. But when you're happy, when you're feeling good, when you're enjoying life, when you have that spring in your step, you're sending out a different signal. And you get a totally different signal comes back to you that matches that joyous, happy feeling. And then people, events, circumstances, and situations are going to come to you that are going to make you even happier and make you feel even better. So enjoying life is ultimate.
Right. So going on and driving on to today's episode, which is Saturday, and again, this is a Sunday wrap or weekend wrap. And this is when you start a business, a lot of time you reach out to your family. So Jerry is my first cousin. We have a fairly small family on the Conrad side, my dad and my uncle, and 5 first cousins, my sister, my brother, myself, and Stan and Jerry. So Jerry, I come from an entrepreneur family, served in the military, but they're entrepreneurs running business. Jerry followed in the footsteps of the family, of course, in which I think all the cousins have for the most part, except my sister has been in and out, but she also loves to teach. Jerry had her own business for many, many years, and she evolved. She also liked the experiment. It goes back to experiment, and was early on into cosmetic, basically tattooing, in the beauty industry. Evolving and putting it in the salons, things of that nature, and actually had evolved with her beauty salon as well as working with plastic surgeons to develop an early base type company. It was very successful, and she made very good money in Danville, California, doing this new type of beauty enhancement and along with the basic. So she put something together, though, and I think we considered that you changing this word. When we say work hard, maybe that's not the best word, because I want to read what her bluff is. You start a business, especially in the beauty industry, in order to build a solid clientele. You have to work hard, put in the hours, and be good, and very creative. I know what she did. This is one of our break. You'll see this in here, but we're going to have to cut. That's my son, my Coast Guard son. Oh. Sorry, Brian. We didn't do our phone check. This will be cut out of the timeline of success. So I'm going to start again. So we're pushing on our time too. So the bluff here, the bottom line up front for Jerry is, she said, when you start a business, especially in the beauty industry, in order to build a solid clientele, you have to work hard, put in the hours, and be good, be very good, and very creative. Well, she loved what she did. She evolved. I'm not sure hard work is the right name. She definitely did creative, long hours, and she did things she loved to do, but she was excited her whole career. And she loved what she did. She came out of a creative, artistic family, and she created and expanded that into business. So I know she loved what she did.
This is really something that we could do a whole show just on this one subject. Ryan said it in his interview that we just spoke about, where he didn't see what he did as work. And that's why we've already touched on it. What are your values? What are your core values? Find something that's aligned with your core values. What do you love to do? We've spoken about that as well. You've got to find something you're passionate about. You've got to find something that you're enthusiastic about. And when you have something that's aligned with your core values, you have something that you love and that you're passionate about, then the efforts you take don't feel like work. And they're actually really pleasurable for you, and you get fantastic results. So highly successful people work, in quotes, they work all the time. but they don't see what they're doing as work.
It goes fast. They love it. Time goes by so fast.
They absolutely love it. And Ed Foreman he was, I think, the second person ever in American politics to become a congressman from 2 different states, or the first person in 150 years since the previous person. And he taught me the following. He said, work is something you are doing when you would rather be doing something else. So when you got something that you absolutely love that's aligned with your core values, you would not want to be doing anything else at that time. Then you're not working. You actually got a labor of love, if we want to call it that, your passion. You taking your gifts and talents and you giving them to the world in a certain way that actually just makes you feel good. Then you're not working. But you're putting in a lot of hours. You're putting in a lot of effort.
Right.
You're doing everything that you need to do, but it doesn't feel like work.
That's one thing. Most entrepreneurs really love what they do. And they don't go and do a lot of other things. Sometimes they do, but they just love their work. They love what they do. They work in what they love to do.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm going to repeat this, where we've said before on the show that the actions that you take are irrelevant. Here are 6 different people that are in 6 different industries, they do 6 different things, and they're all successful. So it's not about modeling the physical actions they take, it's about modeling their mindset. It's about modeling their belief systems and their thoughts. And look at these consistent themes that come out. Don't ever give up. Do what you love. Have a passion. Never ever give up. Put in the effort. They're themes, and people need to follow those themes rather than the actions.
You know, there's so many other things we can go into, but our show is coming into an end for the week. I love this wrap. It's fun. I could talk about how much I love to edit at night. I'm actually liking to edit at night because it reflects and writing and so on and so forth, but it's interesting. Anyway, thank you, Glen, for coming in. It's always wonderful to have your perspective, your look at the shows. It reflects back on what we've done this week. And next week, we'll have the lineup up, hopefully Sunday night, of who's on next week. Thank you.
All right, Bill, thank you very much. And to all the listeners, we'll speak to you next week.
Take care. That's good. Good wrap. My son called. He left a message. I usually remember to take the phone off. That's good. I know our sound is good. We went a little long. We went 38 minutes. I'm trying to cut it back to 28. I think I BS'd a little bit.
Yeah.
But the show is good. This little stuff is good. Right here, I might cut from the front. I'm trying to stay at 33, 34 minutes.
We could probably cut some of